If you've ever experienced a glitch in the Matrix and would like to share it with the channel, please go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank you. This all happened a long time ago on a random Friday at a local skating rink. This was way back when skating rinks were the big things for the young people that wanted to get away from home for a while. I don't know if anyone that will hear this story will understand what I mean, because it feels like it was so long ago, but it was a thing that totally used to happen. Not relevant, but it really feels like the late 90s were 100 years ago. Maybe that's because time has felt like it's flown by in the blink of an eye. Anyways, I would go to the rink every Friday night, and I would meet up with my girlfriends, and we would just have an awesome night with each other. For the most part, it was typically myself, Tiffany, and Amy that would meet up, and we would spend the whole time flirting with the guys that were our age and skating around to the music. On this particular night, all of us met up as normal, and we got into doing what we normally did. I wasn't really feeling the best. I was in a weird mood, so I didn't really want to skate around. But Tiffany and Amy were really feeling it, so they were out on the rink while I sat on the bench with some other girls. But I really wasn't having a great time. I was feeling kind of dizzy and sick at the same time. Amy and Tiffany skated over to me and asked me if I was okay. I told them that I wasn't doing great. They both asked me if I wanted them to call my mom to come get us. At first, I was against it. I didn't want to ruin their night just because I wasn't feeling well. But then, after a few minutes of still feeling dizzy, I decided that we should go ahead and do so. Tiffany went over to the front desk and used the phone to call my mom and told her that I was sick and that we needed to be picked up. After they called, they came back to me and said that my mom was on her way and that it would be about 20 minutes, so they were going to go out and skate for a little while longer while we waited. I told them that I was going to go ahead and wait out front of the rink for her, and they said that they would just meet me out front. I went and turned in my skates, and then walked over to sit on the bench outside of the skating rink. The whole time I was sitting there, I felt like I was getting so dizzy and tired that I could barely keep my eyes open. I felt like I was about to pass out and collapse. I propped myself up against the building and just sat there, breathing heavily and feeling miserable. After a few minutes, I felt a hand shake me awake, which meant that I must have dozed off for at least a few moments. And when I opened my eyes, it was my mom. She asked me if I was okay, and after telling her that I was seriously feeling sick, she told me to wait there and that she would be right back with my friends. Within a few moments, she walked back out with Amy, but not Tiffany. I asked where Tiffany was, and they both kind of looked at me funny. I mentioned that my mom had brought all three of us up to the rink that evening, that it was myself, Tiffany, and Amy, as it always was. She then said that Tiffany didn't come with us that time. I was beyond confused. I remembered it being both Tiffany and Amy there with me. I remembered that it was Tiffany that went to call my mom to come get me. She told me that it was Amy that called, and again, reiterated that it was just Amy with us that night, because Tiffany couldn't make it. This was so weird to me. I was beyond certain that it was the three of us. I remember Tiffany being there, but apparently she never was. I didn't bother to question it any further because I was still feeling sick, and I just thought that maybe I was wrong, but I am certain that it was the three of us. I have no idea how it all changed. How it changed from Amy and Tiffany being both there to just Amy. In the end, they were right. Tiffany wasn't able to make it that evening, but I personally remember things completely different. I guess it was just a weird thing that happened, or else I was in a completely different reality for a bit where they were both there, but then shifted, I guess, when I went outside? I really have no idea. It's the only time that something like this has ever happened to me, thankfully. It was too weird for me to ever have something like this happen again. But hopefully your listeners can enjoy this strange thing that happened in my early teens. Long-time lurker, first-time poster. Before anyone asks, I don't think anyone is stealing from me or breaking in when I'm not home. I don't think my cleaning lady, kid, or a partner would take this stuff and move it like a sick joke. And I don't think I have early onset dementia or anything like that. And no, I'm not OCD. I just know where my stuff is, and I learned at a really, really young age to have a place for everything, and everything in its place. I have always been a bit sensitive. Although I'm not a firm believer in the supernatural, I do think that the multi-world theory is at least plausible. The one where there are multiple universes running concurrently that sometimes overlap or intersect. Sometimes weird things happen to me, around me, and I've just largely learned to accept it and move on. When I was younger, I would have dreams about people who other people said simply did not and never had existed. I would know stuff before it happened, or remember stuff that I could have never known. I found lost stuff easily, and sometimes weird things happened where stuff that I knew I had just disappeared forever. I have lots of memories of things people swear never happened. Parents and siblings chalked it up to an overactive imagination of a highly creative and a bit of an odd child. I never quite felt in step with reality, but largely learned to deal with it and keep my trap shut about the stuff that I experienced, since it tended to weird people out. So, when the chance came up a couple of years ago, I took a leap of faith and bought the house that I grew up in as a kid, and I moved home. The house was exactly as I remembered it, down to the smell of the hard wood and the wood-stained smell. There were a few remodeling things that had been done, but for the most part I can still walk through the house with my eyes closed, knowing how many steps it takes to get from one part of the house to another, and I found myself feeling peaceful, mentally, for the first time in a long time. I also tend to be pretty meticulous about where I put things. Items may seem disorganized to other people, but there's a logical sense and order to where things go. However, more recently, I've felt that weird pressure that I used to feel when things just weren't in sync. And now, things are disappearing around me. A few weeks ago, I made a stew called bergou, which is a conglomeration of meats, vegetables, which I always cook in a tall aluminum stew pot. It takes hours to make, and so I only do that in a big batch, 3 or 4 times a year, and then I freeze the rest. This time was significant, because I was making it for a special occasion. When the cooking was done, the pot went into the sink to soak. My cleaning lady comes on Tuesdays and Fridays to help with certain tasks like the washing up and sweeping or mopping, and she remembers the pot because she had to scrub a little burnt off stuff from the bottom. I know the pot was put away because I put it away myself, after my helper washed out the pan. It went on the pot rack with the lid on top, just like it should. I went to grab the pot the other day to make a big batch of spaghetti sauce, and the entire pot is missing. The lid for it is right where it should be, but the pot is gone. We've searched everywhere for it, and it's nowhere to be found. It's even bothering my cleaning lady because I asked her if she knew where it went, and she couldn't find it anywhere either. Next, stuff seems to be missing from my bathroom medicine cabinet. I keep small pill bottles with labels on them for OTC medicines so that they stay organized. It's nothing expensive, just basic things like OTC antihistamines, nothing with ephedrine, think like Claritin, and migraine pills, diarrheal medicine, ibuprofen, etc. on the shelves. I actually have everything in a specific place because if I need something, I just know where to go for it. Several bottles of the over-the-counter medications are gone. Not empty, just gone. Completely empty space on the cabinet. I asked my partner to come look tonight, and he also said that there is stuff missing, because there's no empty space in the cabinet usually. And aside from him, me, and the cleaning lady, there's practically never anyone in the house. The kid comes home occasionally to do laundry, but there's no reason for them to take the whole bottle of aloe vera cooling gel from the cabinet. Later, I find this stuff in places that I would never think that I would put it or move them to. Again, the cleaning lady and the partner or kid would have zero reason to move this stuff to the weird places that I've been finding it. Every time I experience these kind of glitches, it is just so super weird. This story isn't as glitchy as most, but it's one of those stories where something happened that, to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Because there's no reason for it to have happened like it did. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my 11-year-old son was on summer break at the time, so he was obviously home for most of the day, if he wasn't out playing with his friends or doing what he does. One thing to know about my son is that he's super careful with everything, and he's always had this weird tendency to be overly cautious with things that he should only be simply cautious with. For instance, when he does the dishes, he won't wash the knives. He asks me to do it. This specific situation is because, about a year ago, he was doing the dishes for me after dinner, and he accidentally cut his finger on a ceramic knife when he was washing it. Yes, ceramic knives are very sharp, and he shouldn't have necessarily been washing it, but I'd forgotten that I had used it, and he had surprised me by doing the dishes for me, so that's when it happened. And when it did, I definitely felt bad. His level of caution, though, has actually led to me worrying less about him doing dangerous things. I feel pretty confident that he's good about taking care of himself, and he knows what he should or shouldn't do. On to this weird glitch situation that happened. It was about a month ago, and like I mentioned, he was home on summer break. Being 11, he's been sleeping in, and I'm okay with that. He's a growing boy, and I'm not going to be weird about him having to get up early when he still had almost a month until school started. On the morning that this happened, I'd woken up at around 6, which is when my husband heads out to work. I got up, and I started doing my normal routine of showering and doing all my morning stuff. When I finished up, I was about to head out of the bathroom when something told me to stop moving. Almost like something had caught my attention, but I didn't know what. I looked around the room thinking I had forgotten something, when a random box of bandages caught my eye. They were literally normal, standard, small cut covering bandages that had been on the bathroom shelf for months. And there was absolutely no reason that they should have caught my eye. Something about them was weird. And for some reason, I felt like I needed to grab them and bring them downstairs. I had no reason to do so. I had no idea why I felt that way, but I did. And I decided that I would just grab them and bring them down onto the coffee table to satisfy that weird feeling. I went about the rest of the morning as normal, and at around 9 or so, my son woke up and came into the living room looking more groggy than normal. I wished him a good morning, and I made a bit of a joke about how tired he looked. He just kind of laughed and started walking toward the kitchen asking if we had oatmeal. I told him we did, and I told him where it was. I asked if he wanted me to make it, and he told me that he had it taken care of. So I just let him do what he was going to do, and went back to what I was doing. About 2 or 3 minutes later, I hear him make a weird, pained yelping noise, and come running into the living room with blood on his hand. I obviously jumped up and asked him what happened, and he tells me that he cut his hand while peeling an apple. We get him cleaned up, and I start to make my way upstairs to get the bandages, when I remembered that I had brought them into the living room only a couple hours prior. It was then that it kind of clicked for me. Had I somehow known that this was going to happen? I got him bandaged up and he was good as new, but this was still really weird to me. I actually asked him to explain what had happened, and he said that he had gotten an apple and gotten the peeler out to peel it. But then he had slipped, and he managed to hit his finger. I asked him why he was peeling an apple, as that was something he had literally never done, and he couldn't answer me. He literally had no reason to peel it. He's never complained about apple skins. He's never mentioned that he wants his apples peeled, and it's not something we've ever actually done in our household. It was even more strange that he had gone down the path of peeling an apple after saying he was going to eat oatmeal. This whole thing had me really thinking about things like premonitions and being able to predict the future, and whether or not that is a glitch in the Matrix. I was reading another story on the subreddit about glitches and things like this, and one of the comments mentioned that OP did something to set a whole list of actions into motion. And I wonder if that's what I did. Either I somehow predicted that he would need the bandage, or by bringing them into the living room, I managed to put a weird process into motion where my son wanted oatmeal but then decided to peel an apple for literally no reason and then cut his hand, just so the bandages could then be necessary. It's kind of terrifying to think that it's my fault in some weird way, but at the same time, intriguing to consider the possibilities. A quick backstory. Weird things have always occurred in my apartment. I posted a few years ago about something that happened with my partner being in my apartment, going to the restroom and slamming the door angrily, only to have him walk through the front door a few minutes later. You can't escape from the bathroom window, there are bars on it, and the neighbors would hear the commotion. Also, having things end up in random spots, like my cell phone on the stove, cabinets wide open, remotes that were next to me a minute ago ending up on the table, etc. Yes, I do have a carbon monoxide detector that works. No, I don't have any history of mental illness like schizophrenia, nor does my family, because everyone had asked that in my story a few years ago here. I was recently hospitalized this year from surgery that was supposed to be a safe procedure that people heal quickly from. After the surgery, I went through a traumatic experience. But what made my recovery worse was remembering what happened in my apartment a few years earlier. About 3, almost 4 years ago, I had a day off from school. So, I was just relaxing at home watching a movie on Netflix. I went to the bathroom, came back out to the living room, and halfway through, I was pretty much blinded by a bright light, and it stunned me to where I could not move at all. I could just stand still in my tracks. I heard extremely loud yet muffled voices, and I felt like I couldn't breathe, but like if someone or something else was breathing for me, because my chest was expanding so much, but I know that I wasn't inhaling or exhaling. Then I heard a loud, "Okay, it's going up." And then I come to and scream out loud, "What the hell?" I had to sit down on the couch and just grasp what happened. It was the middle of the day, so I know I wasn't sleeping, and I know how sleep paralysis feels. So now, years later, after my surgery, it's a few hours afterward and they're giving me a small meal, broth and jello, to eat. In the middle of eating, I start to feel weird. I'm extremely weak and tingly, and thankfully there are 2 of my nurses in front of me typing up my notes, and I tell them that something is wrong. I lay back a bit, and then I feel my arms droop and hear one of them say, "I'm calling it." They lower my bed, and I'm getting weaker and sleepier. I see more hospital staff run in, and one of them asking me, "What are you looking at?" to me, as I look up at the bright lights above my hospital bed. Then I start feeling my throat close up, and I begin freaking out, gasping for air, and a nurse starts pumping me with air manually. I start to feel less tingly and breathe better on my own, and I hear someone say, "Okay, it's going up now." I was told in the ICU that during surgery, they had severed an artery and I lost almost 7 pints of blood. I'm grateful that I didn't die, but did I have a premonition, a glitch, or something of what happened a few months ago, over a year ago? I moved to the state that I live in during my junior year almost 19 years ago. In high school, I met Jane and we quickly became really great friends. Her family was like my second family, her little brother's like my own. I would often go to her house because of how much land they had for privacy. It was around a very prominent bend on the road, so you had to be careful to not miss the entrance to her driveway. I also met my partner in high school, so we all knew each other. This backstory will make sense in a bit. Fast forward to now, my partner and I have 2 awesome kids. N, 5 female, and J, 3 months old. N had attended a little academy before she started Catholic school. Once we found out I was pregnant with J, we decided it would be good for N to go back the summer before Catholic school began again. Now, I always like running my GPS anywhere I go, despite knowing how to get to places, just to avoid any traffic jams and to make sure that I'm taking the fastest route. So, while driving N to summer school, for some unusual reason, my GPS was bringing me down Jane's old street. I didn't really think twice about it since her parents sold the house. However, when it became more than a one-time occurrence, I tried finding Jane's old house out of nostalgia and being nosy, as to check the condition of the house. Instead, I found myself in confusion, because after the prominent bend in the main road, the house's driveway was nowhere to be found. I was met with a very large and newer looking house, with a driveway a lot further down than the one I remembered. I mentioned this to my partner, and he remembered her house driveway the same as me. Around the bend, slowed down to make the right into a hidden driveway. But that was impossible, considering the way the new house was placed and the placement of the new driveway. I did some digging on the interwebs, and I found that the house I was seeing now was built 10 years after I moved to this state, while they still occupied the home. When looking for her information, it showed her house was off on another street located a lot further back than the new house I was seeing. It would have required me to make a right down a street that I've never been on to, just to get to her old house, despite the fact that it was always visible from the road. The old house isn't slightly visible from the road now. Furthermore, when looking up her name online, it shows 3 different addresses. 2 different street names, one is the name of the main road, and the other a completely different name, leading to the same house in the back of the main road on Google Maps, and the other one to the new house, with the name of the main road. I have no idea what the hell is going on. I had gone to her house so many times. She would have bonfires that could be seen from the road at night. This new house looks nothing like the house that I remember. So much so that the placement of the house doesn't even sit the way the other house sat. There was a shed that I remember, and this house doesn't have one at all. We're not in contact anymore for reasons that are irrelevant, so I can't reach out to ask her, but I'm having such a difficult time grasping what happened to the old house. It's absolutely wild, and I'm at a loss. This happened the other day, and it was seriously the weirdest thing that I have ever witnessed. It may not seem like much of an event, but it was certainly strange, and I have no idea how to actually explain it. I live on a side road that is attached to one of the main roads of my area, and they have the main road shut down partially due to construction. It's been going on for what feels like forever, but thankfully, as of late, they've been making strides in getting it all finished. Because they're doing it in bursts and sections, they have to block off certain parts and turns and put up detours. But it hasn't been much of a problem until they went into it this hard. When this happened, they had blocked off a rather large section a bit down the road to the right after turning off my road onto the main one. It was basically set up to where, if you turned right off of my road, you would hit construction within a few moments and have to immediately turn around. There were no driveways, no side roads, nothing like that, so there were a lot of cars that were going that way and having to immediately turn back around. It was almost humorous because from the intersection, you could see that there was construction. Yet, people would still turn that way only to be sent back by the road being completely closed off. On to the event in question. My dad and I were sitting outside on the porch having a drink and enjoying the summer weather while talking about nothing in particular. We were watching people that went down the road and making a bet on how long it would be until we saw them make the U-turn and come back, and laughing the whole time. Mostly because, again, you could see the construction when you turned that way, and if you were paying attention, you could see that there was a whole section where there was no road at all. It was just broken down concrete blocked off by roadblocks. As we were sitting there, we saw a bright red Mustang head down the road. I made a comment that it was one hell of a car, because it was pretty clearly well maintained and taken care of. Then, when it got to the stop sign at the end, They hit their blinker to the right. My dad and I both threw out a number of how many seconds it would be until we saw him turn around. He turned to the right and started down the hill, and we just sat there waiting. We were both counting out the seconds and watching, but we were genuinely surprised when we didn't see it come back. We were both kind of scratching our heads like, how long is he going to sit at that road closed sign and just watching? After a couple of minutes, we both decided to walk down to the end of the yard to look at where the road ends to see if he was seriously just sitting there. But when we went and looked, the Mustang wasn't there. Somehow, this guy had just disappeared, but there was no way that he would have taken that car off-road, and like I mentioned, there was nowhere to turn off of the road or go. It was completely and totally blocked. He didn't turn around like we weren't paying attention or anything like that, because we would have absolutely noticed the bright cherry red and very shiny Mustang. It was super weird. He was there, he turned right towards the construction, and then he was just gone. Neither of us had an explanation other than my dad joking about how it was a ghost car, and if that's the case, then there's a ghost out there that has damn good taste in cars and a decent amount of money to spend on one. Last night, after finishing cleaning my kitchen and bathroom, I got ready for bed. I sat down to call my parents, and I hit my vape. After hanging up, I laid down and put my vape to the right of my pillow as per usual. I started playing a game on my phone, and I hit my vape a few times. I stopped playing the game, and I messaged a few friends. I had not left my bed at all, and I was winding down after a few hours of cleaning, as I said, and I just wanted to relax. So, I went to grab my vape next to the pillow, and it was gone. No big deal. There's plenty of memes about having to stand up and look for them every 15 minutes if you're sitting or lying down. So, I proceed with the normal drill. I sat up, picked up my pillows, peeked behind the headboard and see if it slipped on the ground, but no dice. Next, I stood up, took my blanket off and shook it out to no avail, and I proceeded to do the same with my top sheet. I was getting weirded out by now because it was nowhere in my immediate area, so I started looking behind and inside the bedside table, on the floor. I went into the kitchen in my spare room. I finally came back into the room and thought, oh, right, I didn't check my dresser. The reason for that is that I really had no reason to. I barely touched the top of it, and had pulled clean pajamas out of my hamper. I had grabbed some antiperspirant about 3 hours prior, but I had since hit my vape, and I know that I hadn't set it there. I have a lamp on my dresser that's base has about a 1-inch lip around it, so you could possibly put stuff there that you pull out of your pocket and don't want to lose. My vape is sitting there on/in the base of the lamp. I have no idea how it got there. I wasn't wearing pants with pockets at all today, and it's just not a place that I would put something I'm planning on using. I was completely sober when this happened, and I have an annoyingly accurate memory of minute details of things. I don't know if this would count as a time slip, like it could have happened where I went from lying down to putting my vape on the lamp to lying back down and not experienced it. Also, I don't really believe in the paranormal to the extent that I would think some entity moved it. Could I have simply put it there and forgot? I guess that's possible, but the entire thing just feels off. So, I've been following this sub for a while, but I've never posted any supposed glitches that have happened to me because I doubt my memory a lot. However, these two things happened only a day apart, and I'm 100% certain that I'm not just remembering wrong or going crazy. The first glitch has to do with a pair of my favorite socks. They have frogs on them, and I love them. I specifically remember being really sad a couple of months ago because one sock out of the pair had gotten a hole in the toe. That feeling bothers me a lot, so I stopped wearing that pair of socks. A couple of days ago, going through my socks to throw away ones that don't fit, have holes, etc., I came across my frog socks again. But they're both completely fine. No hole in the toe. I know it was these socks that had a hole because they're my only frog socks, and I loved them so much. It was weird, but also really cool because now I can wear one of my favorite socks again. Thanks, universe. This glitch was less than 24 hours after the socks. On my hour lunch break, I usually get fast food, sit in my truck to eat it, and then go to the gas station for a drink and snack to last me the rest of my shift. That day, I wanted a Mountain Dew and one of those smaller cans of Pringles. I specifically wanted the sour cream and onion green can. The flavors are on different shelf heights, and the green can is on the very bottom shelf. I know that I grabbed the green can because I squatted all the way down to grab it off of the bottom shelf. I set my two things on the counter to be rang up. I remember spacing out just a bit, just staring at the card reader until the transaction went through. When I saw remove card, I kind of snapped out of my spacey feeling and went to grab my two things. But my chip can was red. The original Pringle flavor. That flavor is on a whole different shelf. I know I grabbed the green one, but it was suddenly red. I just shook it off and left with my stuff because I didn't want the employees or other customers to think I was crazy. I've never had glitches this apparent that I am so sure of. I know it isn't just bad memory, but I feel crazy. I don't know what else to do other than post it here and see if anyone else finds it weird or has an explanation. Okay, so I got a Scarlet Witch Funko gifted to me a while back. I adore that Funko and would have it on display in my room. A couple months after it was gifted to me, I moved apartment with my grandma's help. When we are getting to the new apartment, she's carrying my box with my Funkos inside. A very small collection, around 7 at the time if I'm not mistaken. She looks down at the box and then straight up into my eyes with this huge regret look on her face. So I asked her what's wrong. She picks up Wanda from the box and I see her original box is all smashed. Maybe another box or some furniture was placed on top. I was mad at first, but I can't be mad at my grandma, you know? So I just opted to keep her out of her original box and throw the original box out since it was really damaged. Fast forward a couple of months, and I'm moving again. This time by myself. No help. I pack everything up and I load it into my car. I get to my new apartment and start unpacking. I open the box containing my Funkos, and the first thing I see right at the top is the Scarlet Witch inside of her box. It looked kind of damaged, but not as I remember. I thought to myself, you know, maybe I didn't actually get rid of the original box or something. I finish unpacking the rest of them, and right at the very bottom of the box, I see her, Wanda. looking right into my eyes, boxless as I actually remember seeing her for the last time. I took a second thinking maybe I confused the first Funko, but nope, also Wanda. I start thinking, maybe there is an explanation to this. So I called Grandma thinking maybe she felt bad for what happened, so she tried to actually replace the original, but just as I thought, Grandma has no idea where or how to purchase a Funko Pop, nor does she have the money to buy one. She's been struggling financially, and I've been helping her. Plus, even if it was her, I packed that box myself, alone, in my previous apartment, and it was by my side all the way to my new apartment where I unpacked it also by myself. One thing that is very important to clarify is that both versions of the Funko Pop are imported from the same store, meaning they were not purchased in my home country. The sticker is even placed on the same corner of the box, if I remember correctly. Now, I'm kind of scared that the me from another dimension is missing his Funko Pop. So friends, that was this week's Glitch in the Matrix collection. Definitely an interesting collection of stories this time around. Some definitely bizarre ones. Yeah. I actually quite enjoyed this collection. I enjoy all of them, obviously, but this one had some stories that were definitely bizarre to me. Ones that I can't explain or really come up with a, like a logical reaction or logical statement to, I suppose, that would potentially explain what happened. So, some really, really fun, glitchy stories today, and hopefully you all enjoyed them as well. If you did, please consider hitting that thumbs up button. It helps a lot. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, I would also appreciate if you would consider subscribing. There's also channel memberships and Patreon, where you can get early access to content like this, so long as it's up early, which I'm trying. It's going to be fun these next couple weeks. Let's just say that. Yeah. There's also one more thing you can do, and that is participate in the Word of the Week. Now, the Word of the Week is this fun little thing where I give a word to my audience, and they leave that word in a comment in the comments. No duh, Raven. Anyways, on the screen now, and probably a few seconds prior to now, is a list of all the people who left me a word of the week from last week. Last week's word of the week was literally anything starting with the letter Z, because I am lazy. No, I just didn't want to give you guys like zebra or zealous or zoo or something like that, so thank you to each and every single one of you who left me a word of the week last week. Greatly appreciated. Y'all are amazing. This week, I'm going to make it simple, because next week is going to be confusing. Not really. Monday will still have a word of the week, but then the second glitch video of the week won't have a word of the week. I just gave away some of what I'm doing next week. Oops. Anyways, yeah, so this week, I'm going to make the process a little simple. It was simple last week, too. This week, just leave me a sentence with the word Matrix. It just has to have the word Matrix. It can be about glitches in the Matrix. It can be about mathematical matrices. It can be about matrices in data sets, if you're into SQL and databasing, I guess, if you're into that kind of thing. It could be about the Matrix. It could be you telling me how much you appreciate Keanu Reeves for his part in the Matrix. However you want to do it. Just use the word Matrix, okay? Next week, we're starting again at the letter A. Woohoo! We made it through the alphabet. Anyway. All right, friends. I do hope you're all having a beautiful day. I hope I do see you on the next video, and I hope you're prepared, because it's going to be a fun rest of the month. But until I see you again, my beautiful friends, please, sleep well.